Hello and welcome. My name is Maria Russell and I'm the first Black woman to ever receive a Michelin star. I'm just out here trying to teach y'all what I know the best I can. Also, I do understand that your time is very precious, so if you need to skip ahead, there are timestamps below. So I hope you enjoy this. This video is going to be all about knives. How to have your own personal preference when it comes to buying what you want, and what's useful and what you do with each of them. All the things. So let's get into it. So I'm just going to go over the different parts of a knife so you know what's what. This is the butt end, the blunt end of the handle. This is the tang, the extension of the blade into the handle. There are full tangs and partial tangs. A full tang is where you can see the blade fully extend throughout the handle. And with a partial tang, it just extends halfway, as you can see. Next is the bolster, the thicker metal between the blade and the handle here, and not all knives have those. That is the heel. This is the bevel, or the cutting edge. This is the belly, the curving part of the blade. That's the tip. This is the spine, which is always on the opposite side of the sharp edge, and it is a little bit thicker for balance and stability. This is called the choil, where the blade becomes a part of the handle, and these are the rivets, how the blade is connected to the handle. And you're probably used to seeing rivets that look more like this. So I'm going to go into more detail about some of these parts and why they're important to know about, starting with bevels. So let's talk bevels. A bevel is the part of the knife that's ground to form the edge. Let's take a look. On this edge cleaver, you can see the variation in color from the spine to where the sharp edge is. It's this darker tinted line right here, and this is a more definitive bevel, so you can see where it is pretty well. But with the chef's knife, the transition isn't as easy to see, but it's definitely still there. Just a lot finer of a line. There are single beveled knives and double beveled knives. Ha 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 ha. Try saying that, that's not easy to say. Single beveled knives, they only come to an angle on one side. So the Japanese deba is a really good example of a single beveled knife. So it comes to an angle this side. When you flip it on this side, it's completely smooth, no angle at all. You're most likely to find a single bevel from Japan. And this is a double beveled knife. Comes to an angle on this side and this side. And you're more than likely to find double beveled knives in Europe. Most European knives are double beveled, so if you are looking for something that's single beveled, I would definitely look for something from Japan. This is so much of a personal preference. Pros of a single bevel would definitely be that when you sharpen this knife, you only have to focus on that one side, so you can in turn get it very, very sharp, because you don't have to worry about matching that same angle on the opposite side. And you can just use this knife for very, very precise cutting. Some cons of a single bevel could definitely be the fact that it is a more delicate blade, and it's more likely to chip because of the fine, angle that it's ground to. Also, you shouldn't use it on harder ingredients, which makes it less versatile than a double bevel. And lastly, just like it being precise is a pro, it can also be a con, because it might take a little bit of getting used to and some practice. Overall, double bevels are more durable and a bit more versatile, so they might work better for, home kitchens especially. So all of this is definitely a personal preference. I'm just really excited and happy to, give this information to you so you're able to choose what's best for you. Moving on to the next one. So a bolster is just the thicker metal between the blade and the handle. It literally means to strengthen, so it's there for you to feel more stable and balanced while you're using your knife, and you can also rest your finger on it, so it can be more comfortable in some situations. Not all knives have bolsters, so it's definitely a personal preference. So there's a full bolster, a partial bolster, a finger guard, which I'm really into, and none bolster. So let me show you what those look like.
So this is my husband's culinary school knife. So it's pretty old and it's been sharpened quite a bit, but this is pretty much what a full bolster looks like. This is a partial bolster. This is just a finger guard, which, like I said, I enjoy, and this has no bolster at all. Bolster.
So some pros of having a bolster is the fact that you can add a lot of pressure onto whatever you're cutting and still feel very stable and balanced. It can also be more comfortable because of the finger rest there. You can rest your finger and in turn, not really form a knife callus. But all of these things are very personal in preference, and I prefer to have a knife callus because you can use any knife and feel pretty comfortable, especially if you're using, you're holding a knife most of the time. Some cons of having a bolster are the fact that it can make your knife a little bit heavier and bulkier and kind of, uncomfortable, but also it can get in the way of cutting things at times, depending on how big the bolster is. So for me, I enjoy either a finger guard or no bolster at all. So all of this, like I said, is definitely personal preference. It just really depends on what makes you feel more comfortable. I love all of my knives, and it has also taken me a lot of time to get to this place where I have a variety of knives that I really enjoy using. I love all of them, and so it might take a little bit of time for you to decide what you like, but it's worth taking that time to do your research and kind of figure out what's best for you, and just buy something because something you think you might not like about a knife, you actually might like it if you use it. So it's funny because I could just stand here and say so much information, so many like specific types of steel and all that stuff, but it's not really that necessary. So as long as you have some basic general knowledge about what is what, I think that's enough to get you to a place where you're comfortable in choosing something for yourself, and that's what I want for you. I want you to be able to go in the store, be like, that's got some rivets. Let me see. Tank, just kidding. But you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying. All right, we're gonna move on. Let's move on. Now we're gonna talk about how to use a knife. So I really think it's important to feel like your knife is an extension of your arm and you're kind of just shaking hands with someone that that's close to you, For me personally, I grab my knife and immediately kind of just choke up on the space between, the blade and the handle. If you have a bolster or a finger guard or no bolster at all, you'll definitely be able to tell with this grip right here. I do a pinch grip, which is when you're pinching the knife in between your thumb and your index finger pretty firmly. It feels very, very comfortable. It feels like you're in control, and you'll eventually, be very, very confident with this grip. So let's take a closer look at that.
So when I pick up my knife, I immediately grab it and put it in the pinch grip position, and I hold it really firm because you want to make sure she's not going anywhere. She has to be strong and solid. Sometimes I do put my finger on the spine depending on what I'm doing, but for the most part, this is the grip that I use in every situation. And it's important for you to feel really confident as well, so that will take time. Nerves will play a role sometimes, but just practicing will help with that as well.
In addition to using the pinch grip, you want to make sure that you're using as much of the blade as you can, also avoiding any kind of sawing motions as much as you can, unless you're using a serrated knife, because it'll catch on the food and it'll get all ugly and you'll be over here looking like a folio just trying to saw through the food all day, and that's not what you want. You just want to look, you want it to look really nice and smooth and not have jagged edges and all kinds of crazy stuff up in there. You know, it's all in the motion. It's all in the motion. And you want to be using really nice long and smooth strokes as well. So even when you're down here, you want to make sure that you're using, you know, the belly of the knife as much as you can. But of course, you know, there's nothing here. So you'll be able to see this a little bit more as we get further and further into cooking and prepping and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for spending time here. I really appreciate it. And if you like what you see, you like what you hear, you're learning something, please feel free to comment and leave a question. Also, like and subscribe. Just go ahead, push those buttons. Do it, push the buttons. So let's get into the different types of steel. There are carbon steel blades, stainless steel blades, and high carbon stainless blends, which are my favorite. So you want to choose a steel that's good quality. The steel is definitely crucial to the quality of the blade and how long it stays sharp. Also, good quality steel does not have to be expensive or, you know, super high maintenance. It just really depends on how you're taking care of it and how sharp you keep your knife, right? Right? Yeah. Such a big deal, y'all. Such a big deal. You don't have to spend a bunch of money on a knife, you know, if you're keeping it sharp and clean and everything like that. It's all up to you. And, you know, not drop it on the floor and not use it directly on the counter, and, you know, just taking care of the blade, just taking care of it, showing it some love all the time. So my personal preference is definitely the high carbon stainless blend. It has a high hardness, which means it's easier to sharpen and it stays sharp for longer. Also, it's less prone to corrosion and rust. Something like a high carbon or just a carbon steel knife will definitely rust on you really fast. So you have to make sure, like, if you get that thing wet, you wipe it dry, girl, because you turn around, that thing is rusty. That thing just will rust out of the blue, and you'll be like, I didn't even get this thing wet and it's rusty. But I live in Hawaii and there's always a lot of moisture and salt in the air, and like even around my sink and everything, that stuff be rusted. So, and I've never seen stainless steel rust so fast in an apartment. But like I said, it's all just very, very personal and preference. So just learn and know what you like, for real. That's real important. If you're a little bit confused about hardness levels, I just want you to know that, you know, something that's high carbon would be the softest, and something that's fully stainless steel will be the hardest. So the high carbon knife will be easier to sharpen, but not, you know, keep the sharp edge as long as something that's completely stainless steel. But something fully stainless steel is harder to get that really sharp edge, but will stay sharper for longer. So, you know, details. It just really depends on what you prefer. I prefer, you know, the middle ground. They meet in the middle and make this beautiful thing that's just a good balance of both things, I think. You know, like, it's not too much of one or too much of the other. It's just, they're meeting in the middle together. Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to explain that because this can get kind of confusing, and I just wanted to keep it as direct as possible. So hopefully that's working. So I want to touch a bit on forged and stamped steel. And I really don't want to bore you, so I'm feeling a little bit tickled with the amount of information that I'm spitting out right now. this will just be really quick. So a forged steel is when they create a knife from one individual block of steel. And a stamp steel is when they kind of cookie cutter it out, you know, it's like one sheet of steel that they punch out the shape of the blade that they, whatever they want. It used to be that stamped steel blades were of less quality, but kind of now there's a transition happening where companies are making better quality stamped steel knives. So it's kind of like this when it comes to if it's better or not. But you know, a good deciding or like a good differentiation is, you know, looking for if there's a tang down in the handle, or if it has, you know, rivets, making sure that it's staying together. So, you know, quality, it'll tell you. It will tell you. And just the way it looks, like, does it look nice? Does it look like it's well made? Does it look like it can go through some stuff, you know? Like, it's kind of like having a partner. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that just a little bit so you have that knowledge of those also being choices. So you have lots of choices here, but I'm excited that you're learning about it. You know, it's something you want to learn about. That's the first step. Okay. I just want to touch on sharpness just a little bit, just why it's so important for you to have a sharp knife all the time and always use a sharp knife. I'm not going to go into how to sharpen a knife in this episode, in this video, because it's a whole different beast in itself, and I want to make sure that you have all the details and information that you need and can see exactly what we are doing. We meaning my husband and I, what we do when we're sharpening our knives. So that's going to be a different video, but for now I just want to talk to you about the importance of having a sharp knife and keeping a sharp knife. For the most part, it's just really important because honestly it's a lot less dangerous, and that sounds kind of crazy, I do understand, but you have to think about if you're using a dull knife and you are, you know, you slip and you cut yourself, that cut is going to be more jagged and have a harder time healing than something that's clean. You know, does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But it's also a lot more efficient to have a sharp knife. You can get things done faster, cut through things faster. It's less frustrating. You know, it's really, really crucial to living an easy life. Especially if you use a knife a lot. If you're using your knife and it's dull, it's going to take you longer to cut through things. Also, it's easier to use because you're cutting right through and you're able to just move on pretty efficiently. Just cycling through, just doing all the stuff you need to do without worrying that your knife is dull and it's just a bummer. Just a bummer, man. We have a dull knife, it's a bummer, and it doesn't make you want to use your knife. You know, you're not like, yes, this knife is sharp and awesome and it feels beautiful, it's just cutting through things. No, when you're using a dull knife, it's like, man, I should have sharpened this last night. You know, like it's a huge bummer. So please make sure you are using a sharp knife. It just feels better. It'll make your life so much easier. It's the thing you want. It's what you want. Okay. Sharpen your knives. Stay tuned for, you know, the knife sharpening video featuring my husband, Garrett. I just want to share with you the knives that I have in my collection. So first is a chef's knife, which this one is my husband's, but pretty traditional, very versatile. Next is a gyuto, which is a Japanese chef's knife. I use it as a slicer for thin, precise cutting. And this is a chef's knife with dimples. It's versatile and it just keeps things from sticking to it. And that is a Japanese debo for cleaning and filleting whole fish. This is a veg cleaver for slicing, dicing, chopping, and mincing. I enjoy using it a lot. And this is a utility knife, similar in versatility to a chef's knife, but for small jobs. And this is a paring knife used for small and more precise jobs as well. I just want to reiterate the fact that it's not about how much you're spending, but you know, how well you maintain your knife and how sharp that thing stays. So important. Also, I just wanted to encourage you, to continue to practice because practice will make you better, and confidence is going to come with all of that practice. So, I want you to feel good about what you're doing all the time. Practice, I think, is one of the most important things to do, especially in cooking. But you can apply that to whatever you're doing at all in your life. I'm trying to do all kinds of stuff. Like, this is very new for me, and it's just taken me a lot of time to be able to be like, I'm talking to you, and I'm way more comfortable than I used to be, but it just took me some practice, and I had to talk to myself a lot. So I'm like comfortable laughing just by myself out loud instead of in my head like I normally would. So practice makes you better. But I hope this was very helpful for you, and thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit. Please have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. All right. Bye. I don't know why I do that. It's enough to be like, okay, I'll see you soon. I don't have to say bye, right? Well, it seems right. I say bye to people before I leave someplace, right? So I think I'm gonna say bye. Bye.